Welcome to the Darkside Twisted List. Today we're going to talk about cannibals. Throughout history, human beings have dined on human flesh, whether it was part of war to gain the enemy's strength or as a means to terrify its opponents. Cannibalism goes back a long way. There have been those lone individuals who find eating people absolutely satisfying. They do it because they enjoy it. So let's take a look at some cannibals you may not have heard of. Our first cannibal is going to be James Douglas, the third Marquis of Queensberry, Scotland. And there he is. James Douglas, the third Marquis of Queensberry, was a Scottish nobleman. He was the eldest son of James Douglas and the second Duke of Queensberry. Stories describe him as an imbecile and violently insane. He was kept under lock and key from childhood at Queensberry House in Edinburgh. In 1706, the elder James Douglas attempted to have his son removed from the succession. It is said that when he was 10 years old, James Douglas escaped. He then entered the kitchen of Queensberry House and slaughtered a young servant. The report says that Douglas roasted the boy alive on a revolving spit, then ate sections of the boy before being apprehended. After the event, Douglas was known as the cannibalistic idiot. So he was stupid and a cannibal. That's just a wonderful thing. The next one we're going to talk about is Terrari. Terrari had an insatiable appetite, and we're going to hear from somebody on the subject of Terrari. But before we do that, the story of Terrari is one of the most bizarre in history. Around 1772, Terrari was born in France. As a teenager, it became apparent that Terrari was different from other people because of his endless need for food. His parents eventually had to disown him because Terrari ate everything in the house, including the pets. In his 20s, Terrari was the warm-up to a traveling charlatan. He would swallow cork, stones, live animals, and whole apples. To satisfy his hunger, Terrari would eat anything available from the town gutters and garbage piles. His bizarre abilities soon caught the attention of the government, and the Terrari was subject to a series of medical experiments to test his eating capacity. He was also known to eat live cats, snakes, lizards, and puppies. On one occasion, he swallowed an eel without chewing it. Despite his unusual diet and endless need for meat, Terrari was a normal-sized man with no signs of mental illness. He was described as having unusually soft hair and an abnormally wide mouth in which his teeth were heavily stained, his lips almost invisible. Terrari constantly suffered from foul body odor. He was described as stinking to a degree that he could not be endured within the distance of 20 paces. One time he went into a hospital to get treated for his endless, ravenous appetite, and while at the hospital getting treated, Terrari would sneak out of his room and scavenge for entrails left in gutters, rubbish heaps, and outside of butcher shops. He attempted to drink the blood of other patients in the hospital and looted the corpses in the morgue. After falling under suspicion of eating a toddler, Terrari was ejected from the hospital. Now we're going to go on to
Terrari.
video.
And the
about
urban legend
Terrari.
surrounding him is he was known as the man who ate everything because of his unsatiable appetite with regards to everything that he ate. He was never able to satisfy his appetite no matter how much he ate. There are recorded entries regarding this as well, so I'm going to talk about all that information here. It's interesting because it could be almost like that movie Thinner, like a real life Thinner, someone who is trying to eat as much as they can but still has that hunger within them throughout their existence. So who was Terrari? Well, he was a man that was born sometime in the late 1700s, 1772 to be exact. Not much known about his early life is really out there. Like, there's not much history with regards to it, only because he was born into a rural family, so there wouldn't really be too much information to talk about there. But it is known that in his earlier years, specifically his teens, he was someone that ate a large amount of food, an abnormally large amount of food. It was said that his habits, his eating could never be satisfied, no matter how much he ate. In fact, by the age of 17, he was known to eat a full quarter of a cow, which was almost his own body weight in a single day. And his body weight at the time was only 100 pounds. That's another thing about him, too. He was someone that no matter how much he ate, he never gained weight. He would gain a little bit apparently, but he never gained the weight proportionate to how
Wouldn't that
much
be
he was
something we would
eating.
all
You and
enjoy?
I and everyone else, if we just went on a splurge of food all day long, every day, we would no doubt have a very large weight afterward. But in this case, this man, absolutely not. He did not have any of that happen to him. So he was eating so much that his poor family actually could not feed him anymore. It grew beyond their capacity. So he was actually almost kicked out from his home. And then for the next several years or so, because he was still young, he just basically roamed with either a gang of thieves or a gang of prostitutes from one city to another, from one countryside to another, doing anything he can to try to save himself from his starvation. He was known to beg for food. He was known to steal food. It was something within him, whatever it was that was wrong with him. It was just basically either mentally or physically within his body. It was always telling him to eat, and because of that, he was never fully satisfied. Like, he always had to find food to do so, and no matter how much he ate, he just always remained hungry. Well, by pure happen chance, he came across a traveling circus of some sort, somebody there, I guess, who decided to employ him as an act. And when he did so, I guess this would be one of his more happier times, this guy Terrari, because he was then able to show off his skill to crowds and no doubt probably get paid something for it, and also have all the food or most of the food that he could eat. It was a little bit of weird stuff though, because he was known to also eat live animals, including puppies apparently, and also kittens, so definitely not a good thing on that part. But he was known as far as other acts, like he would eat whole baskets of apple. He would definitely eat unusual things too, like he would put corks in his food, spoons. He would eat stones as well. No matter what he was given to him, to the crowd, he would eat it, and they would of course gaze in awe because of it. And then that's when things got better for him. Well, unfortunately, one time he did have something bad happen to him. I guess he was eating something. The way the story goes, it was either a gold fork or something metallic, larger than usual. And when it went into him, it went somewhere bad in his intestines, and that took him out. Like, that was something where it was not good. And so he was actually out of the picture for a little while, but in essence, his act there was over. Still, though, he suffered from that condition. He recovered from it. I think the way the story goes is he was taken to a hospital, and they were able to get things out of him, whatever it was that was causing him those problems. But the main issue, as far as him always being hungry, was still there. Well, by 1792, there was a war happening. The War of the First Coalition, I believe, is the way it was called. And he joined the army, also no doubt to fight for his country, but to also take advantage of the food that they would provide. Well, in this case, each soldier was always given a ration, a fixed ration. That's the whole idea of being in the military, is you can't just get everything you want. You essentially be given a ration. He, though, of course, that was not enough for him, so he would actually do a bunch of tasks apparently for other soldiers. Like, he would ask them, what can I do for you? What chores do you want me to do? Something along those lines, so that way he could get their rations. But still, that was not enough for him, so much so that he was known to delve into garbage bins, into gutters, even, get this, even the bathrooms, like the dung heaps that were used, either permanent ones or temporary ones, wherever the soldiers were. He was known to scavenge within them, trying to find any food whatsoever. So clearly at that point, that's when the military took him away from there, because he was no doubt in a crazy state. They took him to a hospital, And then this is where I guess it was the first circumstance where here at the hospital was trying to like there was examinations and try to see what was causing this within him. And so they did something as far as experiments. Now these experiments were mainly, it seemed, just to test his limits. They did provide him with a whole bunch of meals, far more than anything else this guy Terrari had ever had, and that including meals for 15 men, 15 laborers, to try to see if that was enough to satisfy him. But no, it wasn't. If anything, he ate it all, and then it just allowed him to go back to sleep thereafter. But still, when he woke up, there he was again, so much hungry. In fact, there were other points too where they give him other live animals, including snakes, lizards, and eels. Snakes were apparently his more favorite thing. And then on top of that, the military, they decided they wanted to take one other tribe with him, but through a curious method, realizing that his appetite could pretty much allow him to eat anything. They thought that they could have something as far as like encrypted messages kept within him. So the whole idea was he would swallow these wooden boxes. Those wooden boxes will not interfere with his body like other people would have problems with, and then that way when he crossed over enemy lines and made it to a specific target, he would essentially go to the bathroom, those wooden boxes would come out as a stool, and then that message will be passed. Unfortunately though, things failed because the idea was that he would try to be like a spy and then go into foreign territory. Well, the territory he went to, somewhere in Germany I believe, or in a German area, nobody bothered to realize that he didn't speak German. So quickly and immediately he was found out to be a spy. He was captured, and then that was it. He was about to be hanged, if you can believe it, for being a spy there, but it was decided that there wasn't really anything that he was doing dangerous wise, so he was instead released. He was though almost, tortured to death, but in the meantime though, he knew that he was lucky with that regard. Things changed though. I guess this was the turning point for Terrari. He was realizing that his appetite.
So that was a little bit about Terrari. He was definitely an interesting person, and I don't think that there's many people that have ever been like him after that. Now we're going to talk about Ratu Udri from Fiji. During the 19th century, the Fijian people were known about the world for their ritualistic cannibalism. And Udri was a Fijian commoner. He holds the Guinness World of Records for the most prolific cannibal. Udri reportedly ate between 872 and 999 people. He kept a stone for each body, and the stone was placed along his tomb in Rakakiri in northern Viti Levu after his death. According to Udri's son, the chiefs of Rakiraki would go to the battlefield along with Udri, and they would each give him every body part of their victims, especially the head. Udri preserved the human remains and ate them. He believed that after he consumed the 1,000th body, he would become immortal. Unfortunately, he only got to 999. Now let's talk about Lino Renzi. Lino Renzi. On July 2013, he was 45, and he was found out while cooking some remains of his mother, age 73, in the apartment by the police, called in by a neighbor after smelling a disgusting gas odor coming from Renzi's apartment. Casual, caused by some intestinal chunks frying in a pan. Not good at all. Apparently he and his mother had gotten into an argument. He had killed her and decided that the best way to rid himself of the evidence would be to eat it. So let's go to a video, a little bit about Mr. Lino Renzi, and let's see what the story is with this gentleman.
45-year-old Lino Renzi was found cooking some remains of his mother in his apartment. Emergency services went to the apartment after an anonymous caller reported a strong smell of gas coming from the property. They found Renzi in his bedroom in a confused state and completely naked. Cops discovered several pieces of a human body in the freezer, in the oven, and in pots. The rest of the corpse was lying in the bathroom and featured severe mutilation to the arms and legs, alongside several removed intestine pieces. Her entrails were on a plate, having been cooked on a grill. Renzi confessed that he brutally beat her to death after a quarrel, then dismembered her into pieces with a saw and a butcher knife.
Well, that was Lino Renzi. I guess his mother really pissed him off. Next, we're going to talk about Omani Ari Nelson. She was an Egyptian model and nanny who was convicted of murdering her husband, Bill Nelson. She is serving a life sentence at the Central California Women's Facility. Her case made international headlines due to allegations of bondage, sex, decapitation, castration, and cannibalism. So let's hear a little bit about this lady.
I don't think Omaima was very good with words. What she was good with was her sexuality. She could get men to do things for her, and she used her sexuality to get what she wanted.
Don't leave me here. She met Mr. Nelson much like she met the other men. She met at a Costa Mesa bar near his home. He coddled her and caressed her and treated her like a lady. He loved her.
To the outside world, if you look at her, she looks perfect. Inside is an inferno of rage, an inferno of violence just waiting to erupt.
Don't laugh at me! I'm serious!
Sometimes your worst enemy is sleeping right next to you, and you don't even realize it.
I will not! For a woman to deliberately murder is rare enough. For a woman to dismember a murder victim is far more rare. It takes a great deal of effort to cut it up into multiple pieces, to package all those pieces so that they don't look human. There was something about him that she felt the need to destroy him. She was depraved to her very bones. We don't know much about Omaima's girlhood and teen years in Egypt, but what we do know is that almost as soon as she got to America, she started getting in legal trouble. I think the roots of her problems started growing when she was a young girl. What happened was destined to happen.
So, yes, apparently she chopped her husband up and fried him up and ate him, and yeah, she was a pretty sick woman. So that was our episode on cannibalism. Of course, there are so many more stories. Of course, we all know about Jeffrey Dahmer and Albert Fish, but these are some of the ones that maybe you haven't heard of before. So thank you so much for joining another Darkside Twisted List. And look for our show, our Darkside live show, coming back in the fall. Thank you so much and have a great day.